Hey everyone, welcome back to the 6 Points Podcast. This is our second installment of the IPL preview. We'll be talking about DC. We're essentially just working our way down last season's table. But a couple of buys for DC. Aayush, you want to take it away?
Yeah, for sure. So, Delhi in the last few years seemed like they finally found the combination that's gonna, bring them some consistency. Every year they buy players. They had Maxwell in 2018. They had Liam Plunkett. They had a lot of players, that were Gautam Gambhir as well. But I think under Shreyas Iyer's captaincy, they've really clicked in the last 2 years. Third in 2019 and second last year, just losing out narrowly to the Mumbai Indians. But I think the biggest blow for them this year is losing Shreyas Iyer. I mean, he is the leading batsman for their team at number 3. He gives them a lot of stability, and he also gives them a lot of explosive knocks. So I think the number one talking point for DC this year will be, can Rishabh Pant step up to the plate? People compare him to Dhoni a lot. They say after Dhoni, it's probably Rishabh Pant who's going to take up that finisher role. But I think this is going to be a real testament to the fact that, can he lead a team? And can he still bat well? Because he's been batting really well in the England series. So if he can carry that form into the IPL, I think Delhi will still have a decent enough lineup where they can put good scores on the board.
Yeah, Delhi was already I think Delhi was my pick to take it home last season, for exactly the reason you highlighted, that they've very slowly assembled this incredibly strong Indian core, and I think one of the only Indian cores that could rival Mumbai's at this point. Add to that the fact that at least 3 of the players in this lineup are coming off red hot runs of form in the Indian national side, that being Akshar Patel, Ashwin, and Rishabh Pant. And Pant absolutely is an X factor. I think he has the potential to be one of the best wicketkeeper batsmen the world has ever seen. And he's been on this incredible tear of form lately. You throw in Narka's emergence as a very, very strong bowling option last season. And it is hard to see almost anyone beating this team at full strength. Now, the problem is they're not at full strength, especially at the beginning of the season, but all throughout. The loss of a captain, Shreyas Iyer, and someone who really glues the middle order together, is pretty brutal.
Yeah, I think interesting talking point as well is the conversation between Smith and Rahane. Especially with the overseas pacers being of Norkia and Rabada being left out initially, that may open up some spots further up the order where you could play both of them potentially. But once they do, the 2 South Africans do come into play. Who do you think is really going to come in? I think it's going to be Rahane initially, and seeing how he plays Smith may come in at some point if there is an overseas position. Primarily also because Ponting's coach, so that may sway the decision in some way. But they both play a similar role of the anchor. But who do you think is going to come in initially, and who's going to sustain that role?
Well, so I think at a full strength Delhi lineup, I don't see a spot for Steve Smith because I think Rabada and Nohir are must first choice picks, and then Rahane will take 3. Rahane and Steve Smith are very similar players. I don't think you'd want to have both of them in your batting lineup. They're both play that anchor role, and they do struggle to step it up at times. So I have Rahane at 3 in the first 11, but I think for that third pacer choice, it's a decision between Ishant Sharma and Umesh Yadav. Umesh Yadav's the new buy for Delhi. He was obviously been on RCB for the last 2 seasons or 3 seasons, and Ishant was injured last year, so he didn't play the entire IPL. So I think, if Rabada and Nohir are not available, that opens up 2 overseas slots. I do think Steve Smith's still a better batsman in this format than Ajinkya Rahane, so I'll be putting Steve Smith at 3, and then I have Chris Wokes as one of the overseas bowlers, and then I'll just play Ishant and Umesh Yadav both. So instead of 2 overseas pacers, I'll have 1 overseas, two Indian bowlers, and they're 2 very experienced Indian bowlers. I don't think, even though I wouldn't rate them at the same quality as Rabada and Nohir, I still think they still make a solid bowling lineup.
And I think the good thing for Umesh Yadav is he doesn't have to bowl at the death this year. I think for RCB, his strength was the first 6 overs. First 6 overs, I think he has one of the highest wicket-taking rates in the IPL. So his issue really for RCB was the death bowling. I mean, death bowling, we all know Umesh Yadav just cannot do. So I think the big opportunity he has for Delhi is you have Rabada, you have Nordkia there for the death bowling. So all he really needs to do is just take a few wickets in the middle overs. I think that can make Delhi a really strong team if Umesh Yadav is there, picking 1 or 2 wickets in the middle overs, going at 7 or 8 runs and over. I think Ishant can play that role as well. So I do think that third seamer, which really struggled last year. Last year they tried, I think Mohit Sharma for a couple games, Tushar Deshpande, just relatively newer bowlers. I think that experience that Ishant and Umesh will bring in will be a big difference this year for Delhi.
I do find it difficult to see the side working without Tom Curran in the mix for those first few games when you don't have Rabada at the death. I am not convinced that there's a great death bowling option when you don't have Rabada and Nortje in the mix. That's the only weakness I see with this lineup. And obviously it's a very corner scenario that's popping up here. But those first few games, they don't have a great death bowling option. It's hard for me to see them not wanting to bring in Tom Curran as one of those three seamers.
Maybe a year ago I would agree with that, but the form Tom Curran has been, I would rather try Chris Wokes instead. Tom Curran's just been too expensive. ODI cricket.
Wokes wasn't great either last year though. So
Wokes didn't play last. Wokes has not been a regular in IPL for a while since.
Yeah, I think he was in RCB in 2018, right? And then I don't think he played last year.
Yeah, he's not had a good IPL record, but I'm thinking for the first couple games, I mean, he's one of the best ODI all-rounders in the world, and he has the skills to bowl. He does bowl in the death for England in ODI cricket, and I think he can definitely do it for Delhi for a couple of games. Tom Curran just has no confidence right now. I wouldn't be putting him in at the death right now, even though yes, Tom Curran has more of a reputation as a death bowler, but Chris Wokes I think has just more all-round ability here.
Yeah, it's a toss-up certainly, and Chris Wokes is one of my favorite players in the world. Every time I see him miss out on the England team, I'm absolutely gutted. I really respect him as a player and as a person. And in my mind, it is pretty much a toss-up. I can definitely see Delhi being tempted by the known quantity as a death bowler, someone who has at least more experience bowling at the death. So he does have that going for him in those first few games, but I don't think he starts after Rabada's in the mix. I think the other interesting question in this lineup to me is we saw the other two overseas slots typically going to Marcus Stoinis and Shimron Hetmyer, who are both two of the most explosive players in the game today. Sam Billings in the mix is potentially very interesting. I could see him being, a swap out with Hetmyer. They fill pretty similar roles. Billings is also known for being incredibly explosive. England have used him very well recently. So I'm not sure which way they'll go on that particular decision. I think Stoinis, given his performances last year, is absolutely a lock for the starting 11, but it's not clear to me whether you want Billings or Hetmyer in the mix here. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. That was probably the hardest thing for me to pick was between Billings and Hetmyer. Hetmyer has not been playing too much for West Indies recently. I think he got dropped because of fitness issues. So he had an okay season last year. He obviously didn't get too many balls. He had to come and hit a lot, and I think he did okay in that role. But I think Sam Billings is just a better batsman at the moment, and I have him starting over Shimon Hetmyer. Also, he just has a better all-round ability. He's a better fielder. He's a backup wicketkeeper as well. There isn't a huge trade-off. They're very similar players. They play very similar roles. I don't think you can go wrong with either.
I think Billings has the benefit of more game time recently, and he was part of the India tour just now. Was he not?
Yeah, he was. He did get injured. I think he's fine though. I think he is available.
Yeah, so he's had recent exposure to the conditions that they're likely to encounter as well. So that might go for him. That applies for most of the India.
They played their first 3 games in Mumbai, and I think the issues that Sam Billings had for Chennai when he played for them in 2018 was after that one really good innings of 56, he just couldn't play spin after that. I think he was dismissed so many times facing spin bowling. So playing the first 3 games in Mumbai, I think, might be a big advantage for him because he's somebody that likes the pace, on the bat. So I definitely do see him. If they don't pick Smith, I do think they might go for Billings over Hetmyer early on.
All right, so now within the spin department of Delhi, Akash, let me bring you into the convo here. I mean, you're the biggest Ashwin fan in the Cal cricket team. So, how important is this IPL for Ashwin? Has he got a lot?
I think it's incredibly important. He's made it no secret of his intention to get into India's limited over squad. So I think he definitely sees this IPL as probably his last chance to be in the reckoning for the World T20 that's coming up later this year. And I think his versatility he's had a phenomenal IPL record for quite some time now, the past 4 years especially. I do expect he'll be bowling in the power play too, especially if there's a left-hander, 2 left-handers at some point. And I think he adds incredible versatility to the team. because as we mentioned with Rabada and Norkia, if they bowl like 1 or 2 overs each in the power play, Ashwin can bowl 1 or 2 as well, and then you can save your Indian pacers for the middle overs and maybe into the death as well. So I do think he provides an incredible amount of assurance in that you can bank on him to deliver like 4 economical overs and probably get a few wickets as well.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, last season, Ashwin and Akshar Patel made a great duo. I mean, staying in the IPL, when I say Ashwin and Akshar Patel, half the England Test team are already crying, frightened already.
59
Well,
wickets.
so you play them against Rajasthan, and then all the game's over, right?
No, Rajasthan's already at a disadvantage. It's okay.
Yeah, we'll wait till the Rajasthan preview. I think anyone. But the one thing if there's one thing that's common with T20 cricket, it's leg spin. Leg spin is the dominating bowling style in this format. They do have a quality leg spinner. They have an IPL veteran in Amit Mishra. Do you guys see Amit Mishra playing in this team though? Considering the form of Akshar Patel and
Probably in the
I
beginning.
think Akshar Patel will start. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I think depending on how.
Do you know if COVID's still gonna?
I think he's ruled out of the first game, so I think that's Amit Mishra's like first, big chance to make a statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. Akshar probably, most likely takes the spot once he comes back.
Akshar offers a lot with the bat as well, I think. Like with Mishra, he's not as good of a batsman. So I think once Akshar Patel returns, he's going to fill in that slot again.
I will say
Mishra actually came out and he said he's been working very hard on his batting. And he's not an incapable batsman. More of a test match batsman. He has a solid defense, can bat long, but he said he's been working a lot on his batting. I don't know what that means, but sometimes these punts work. We saw Rahul Tewatia last season. Can never go in. As a pure attacking option, I think you would rather look at Mishra over Akshar Patel. Though Akshar Patel was pretty good last season.
That's exactly what I was going to throw out there. Is these first few games they're missing a genuine wicket taking option. And you obviously have a lot of bowlers who can restrict runs. Akshar Patel and Ashwin are both extremely good at choking off the flow of runs, either in the power play or through the middle overs. Amit Mishra does give you a genuine wicket-taking option, which you don't have quite as much in the absence of Nortje and Rabada. So that's something going for him, is he is absolutely a bowler who can make things happen when the captain needs it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if he had to go for the first 2 or 3 games and see where things were at that point. His experience can't be underestimated here either. Even having him in the camp in general, someone who's been through this many seasons and knows the league and the tournament this well, is going to be a huge asset for all of their spinners.
Yeah. I think if you look at the weakness here, it's definitely got to be that number 3 spot. Shreyas Iyer is such a consistent player for Delhi. He's really your banker. You can kind of expect him to score 400, 500 runs this season, and replacing him with either Rahane or Steason is such a drop-off in quality. But if there's one thing that Delhi fans should be very, very optimistic about, you're looking at this team. They pretty similar batting lineup outside of Shreyas Iyer. They made the finals last year with Prithvi Shaw and Rishabh Pant doing absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. Prithvi Shaw was getting out in the first over. Pant had no flow at all throughout the season. 6 months later, Prithvi Shaw is in the absolute form of his life. He's averaging 170, I believe, in a 50-over tournament with a strike rate of 150. This stats would be insane for a T20 format. But for this to be an ODI, it shows the class of the player. Despite he's received a lot of criticism in the past in that 3-month period where he was out of form and then went to Australia and had a pretty horrid test match. But he shows the quality of the player. He's supremely good on these in Indian domestic cricket. There's a reason why he made his test debut the same year he was just playing under-19 cricket. So the fact that they have him in form, then you have a Rishabh Pant 6 months ago who's not doing well in IPL, wasn't a sure starter. Now he's a superstar in the Indian team right now. He's literally dominated all formats. He's the hero of one of India's biggest test victories. He's a much improved keeper now. So looking at these two players and how that they're triple what they were 6 months ago, that provides a lot of confidence to Delhi and probably would overcome the fallout they get from losing Shreyas Iyer. So I think Delhi have a lot to be confident in, especially if Marcus Stoinis also pulls up in the same form he usually was last season and he has been in BBL.
Yeah, and I think one more thing that I'm very excited to see is they also have, apart from those two, they have Shikhar Dhawan, who is a bit under pressure right now because he was dropped from the T20 squad after the very first game. I think they replaced him with Ishan Kishan. And we know, since the last 7 years, Dhawan, when he's under pressure, he performs very well. 2015 World Cup, Before that World Cup, he was in Australia in that tri-series against England, and every single ball he was just edging to slips. Not a single run he could score at all. But 2015 World Cup came and he absolutely I think he hit a century against Pakistan or something. Or maybe it was, one of the first few games. Dhawan, when he's under pressure, scores a lot. I mean, any Champions Trophy, any World Cup you see. So he's going to be hungry to get back into the Indian team. He's not guaranteed a spot, I don't think, in the T20 World Cup, especially if they're backing Rahul to play. He has to score runs this IPL. So I'm very excited to see how he, tackles that up front.
Yeah. If someone just tells Dhawan, "Oh, you're under a little bit of pressure," he'll score runs. That's what he's always done. He's never been out of the, when it comes to ODI and T20 for India, he's never out of the team for too long. They always bring him in because he never has long form droughts. I don't recall him ever going a lot of series out runs. It's not like he's under form drought either. He failed one game and then got dropped. So yeah.
I think I have to pick Delhi to take it home again this season. One of these days I'll be right.
Yeah, I think top 3 for me this season. Can't unless the Indian core doesn't fire, which I can't see happening. Top 3.
I think top 4, but I think they're gonna have to work their way back, especially with the bowling attack not looking as strong in the first few matches. But they'll be there in the top 4 for sure. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, leave a comment with your team for your 11 for DC, and see you guys on the next one.
Follow our Twitter account.